You are listening to Autistic Stuff for Autistic People, a podcast in which a few autistic friends talk about their lived experiences and special interests. We are here to invite you into our world as autistic peers, sharing relatable conversations about life as autistic people. This podcast is for autistic people and anyone that lives with, works with, or loves an autistic person. I am Aradia. I am the creatively autistic coach and also the podcast producer for Fox and Raven Media.
I'm Cheryl, and I'm an autistic peer support coach and body talk practitioner who helps people understand, accept, and love themselves more completely.
Hey, and I'm Rebecca Rush, and I am a peer support coach that works with creatives, neurodivergents, and outliers, and I'm also a poet.
So welcome back to another episode of Autistic Stuff for Autistic People. Today we are going to discuss one of my biggest pet peeves. Well-meaning neurotypical people giving one-size-fits-all life advice that never works for me as an autistic human, and often actually backfires because I take it all quite literally and then feel broken when it doesn't provide the promised results. This episode's purpose falls into the lived experience and autism information category. I suggested this category because I have spent a lot of years feeling overwhelmed by the world around me and ashamed that my life didn't look like my peers. When I would search for advice from friends, family, books, courses, podcasts, videos, and articles, I would be met with a mountain of advice that seemed to work for everybody else. But when I tried it, I only felt more like a failure. The constant question in my mind was, what's wrong with me? Maybe you can relate to that. And if you can relate, then this episode is for you. If you're a neurotypical person listening who loves someone who's autistic, this episode might help you understand why so much of the commonly accepted advice leaves autistic people feeling frustrated and alone. So, today we are going to discuss some popular advice that doesn't work for us as autistic people, explain why it doesn't work for us, and what we do instead. Throughout, we will give some helpful strategies on how to spot potentially harmful advice. And as a little caveat at the beginning, this is based on our unique lived experience. This is not going to be one size fits all. Take what you like, take what resonates, and leave the rest. Who wants to start today?
Well, I can go. I had only just looked at the script a little bit before we got started because I've been discombobulated for personal reasons. And so I'm kind of going a little bit off the top of my head. But you did put some prompts in the script, so I have thoughts right away. Because, we have a group chat that could get mined for content. And one of the ones that was suggested for me was just showering every day. This is going to be one of those ones where it's like, for some reason, Reddit has decided that I need to see our hygiene like 50,000 times a day. I don't know why it decided that needs to be my feed, but it is. So I see the evergreen topic around showering, both for autistic people and just everyone in general. And it's a thing a lot of people have opinions on. But I find that the autistic reasons for not showering do not tend to get addressed in those discussions. It's always about, how dare you have these standards for yourself? How dare you not manage your time this way? But for us, it tends to be an incredible amount of sensory issues. Transitions are hard. All of the noises and the water in the eyes and it's all very hard. And it makes you should just shower every day feel like such an insurmountable challenge, right? It takes so much executive functioning. And so for me, in my life, I have found that the way to handle it is, first of all, to actually be able to assess for myself, do I need to shower? If I have been biking around, going to class, doing stuff around lots of other people, being on lots of common surfaces, exercising, I probably would like to scrub the world off, just in general. However, if I have been doing a rest day where I just stayed in a cocoon on my couch all day, I don't really see where the exertion cost is coming from. That means I need to shower, like at all. Like it's just why? Not because other people told me I have to, but like literally why? And then if I do have to shower, and this is going to relate to the other prompt you gave me if I get around to it, I have to make it have some rewards in it, right? I have specific playlists that are like the music that I can like just sing to and stim to and like ignore the shower to. I get to look forward to like a very specific headspace with very specific music that makes that like, okay, I don't want to shower. I don't want to deal with the transition into the world of being all like wet. And then I have to get dry again. But I'm going to listen to this playlist that I'm basically sick of in any other context. So, I've managed to bring some sensory joy into this thing that costs me something. So there's a little bit more give and take with the shower environment. And that makes the bargaining a little easier with myself, takes less spoons. So that's my first one.
I love that so much. That's so cool. And I love how you brought in that sensory joy. And I was also thinking as you were talking, like, there's often this idea that autistic people have very black and white thinking, right? You either shower every day or you never shower, right? We have these huge binaries. And I've been realizing recently that there's so much in between, right? Like sometimes, if I've gone through a heavy workout, sure, I'm gonna probably, like you said, want to take the full shower. But like I have a buzz cut. So some days I just shove my head over the tub, wash my hair, take 2 minutes, and wash my face, and I'm good, right? I've been in situations where it's like maybe you have wet wipes, and because you don't have the spoons for a full-on shower, but just do the necessary areas with a wet wipe. Great. A bath might be better for some people because they can't stand. Like with if you have POTS or something like that, standing is really hard. But for me, my personal experience is if the water's not going on my face, then it's like I'm okay if I'm like sitting in the water. So there's so many variables that we can try as autistic people and be, beyond our black and white stereotype.
Yeah, and I think we don't really we talk a lot about social batteries, but like we also have transition batteries.
Yes.
And a shower is involved with so many transitions. Like recently I didn't shower for 9 days. I got so much done in other areas of life. But then this past weekend, me and my Thanksgiving past CPTSD decided to deal with a deep processing week by smoking cigarettes and drinking wine. So this morning I was just like, ugh, why do I feel? I'm like, oh yeah, you need to shower that off. You smell like cigarettes. Like you smell like the 90s. And I feel great right now because my brain was like, it's worth it. But yeah, I have shower wipes. Showering every day is not something I've made myself do since the pandemic.
And also the time of the day makes a difference. Like I was finding that when I was trying to force myself to do the morning shower, that is, I don't know, I guess standard expectation, I would find that it would take me so long to get going in the morning and then to do all of the steps involved and then like almost like recover from it. Again, not every day is the same, but some days it would be like that. And I'd be like, I haven't even gotten to like my actual work yet. And it's already, whatever time. So I find for me like that quick little hair wash in the morning and then a shower or bath before bed, it really relaxes me and calms me. And then, it sends a signal to my brain like, bedtime. So yeah, this is all examples of trial and error. We heard neurotypical advice. We heard the expectation. We saw what worked for other people. We said, not working for us. We're going to do it differently. And as you can hear, we've all got different approaches for this one.
Oh my gosh. It's another piece of neurotypical advice is to get ready for the day. It's bigger than showering, right? Like I like to I showered and put on clean stay home clothes, which neurotypicals would call pajamas. They are stay home clothes. And like getting ready for the day, putting on, why the fuck would I do that? Like, on TV, they're always just like ready. And I understand that's TV, but like, I think a lot of neurotypicals, even if they don't leave the house, they wake up, they shower, they put on uncomfortable clothes. They put on clothing that hurts and is binding. And they're like, this is me being ready for life. And that is not ready for life for me. That is me about to cry. But that takes up too much energy. Like, it's way easier to wake up and then start to do things in the state I already am in. Like, especially if I'm not leaving the house, why would I spend that money? That energetic money?
Yeah. Yeah. And not everyone, obviously we understand that not everyone is in the same life situation. Some people, like if they're working a 9 to 5, right, they may have to adapt to their situation, not to their own, intrinsic needs. At the moment, since I work from home and I work for myself, I do have the ability to kind of structure my day a little bit differently. And if you experience like a delayed circadian rhythm, which some autistic people do, right, it's this idea that we actually get more done at night, and then it takes us a little bit longer in the morning to get going throughout our day. So common advice doesn't always work for us because like I'm actually getting up to my peak like late morning, early afternoon, as opposed to crack of dawn, which, I remember one of the first, little sayings I heard as a child, like early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. And it's like the number of common sayings that was probably made by a neurotypical that then we take on as, sage wisdom. And I'm going, well, that's not working. which I think for me, this leads into one of my biggest challenges is the advice on eat the frog first, right? This idea that you start with the hardest thing. This is a big piece of advice in like optimizing your day or like, productivity hacks that I've seen. And for somebody like me who is autistic and ADHD, there's a lot of issues with eat the frog first. If I am trying to start something with no dopamine, no nothing to look forward to, I just have this big task looming in front of me that I know is going to take a boatload of spoons, and I'll probably need recovery time afterwards. I don't even want to start, right? It takes all sorts of energy just to get going. So for me, it's so much better to, one, have a little bit of fun first, do something, again, it violates the regular rule of reward after, but I like reward before and after. Anyways, so I do that, get myself in that state, and I pick off the smallest tasks on my list. If there's some emails, if there's some small like creative tasks, if there's something that I can do quickly and I can get 3 check marks for the price of 1, you better believe that's happening first. And then the frog will come in the afternoon because that's when I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I need a ramp up period. I need momentum, and then I can punch through the wall. Yeah.
That makes so much sense. And I love how all of the advice so far that we've talked about is all about like being ready to function. But I think that's so much of the experience. And this, I think, goes along with it. Ooh, okay. Just trigger warning, everybody listening and you guys. When a neurotypical walks into the room and throws the blinds open. And they're like, oh, what about that? Like, before they exposed Huberman, for who I could already pattern recognize that he was, that whole, like, sunlight in the morning. Like, that burns my eyes just thinking about it. Or they think, oh, you're depressed because you're in the dark. No. I'm depressed because I'm autistic in an allistic world. I'm burnt out, and you call it depression. And in the dark is how I am it's my freaking charger is how I function. It's only until somebody else, I only put on really lights, somebody else is coming over. And I really would prefer not to even have them come over. Actually, can we have a phone call? Would you like to hop on a Zoom?
But that's interesting about light, because I noticed like when I was teaching, and I found that to be a very draining profession, and I would come home from work, I'm saying that really politely, it was very draining. I would come home from work and I would need a good 15 or 20 minutes laying down in the dark, blackout curtains, face mask, silent and dark. And I don't think that a lot of neurotypical people can fully grasp the overwhelm of visual stimulation, right? I know we hear a lot about like the auditory, like it's too loud, the grocery store, the concert, but visual is so overstimulating. Like I can't even tell you. And I remember going to my doctor several years ago, like I'm getting headaches all the time. And then I was telling him, I feel better after I'm in the dark for a while. And he's like, oh, you must be getting migraines. Like here's some medication or whatever. And I'm like, no, I just need the dark. Like, so I think that's really important to really keep in mind, like your own lived experience when you're hearing advice. Like if you know right away that that's not going to work for you, take it from us. Don't waste your time on it. It's only going to take you more spoons to recover afterwards.
Well, yeah, it's seen as wallowing, which is like neurotypicals really hate any wallowing. Like that is a word that evokes a pig. Like it's such an insult. Like you're in the dark, you're wallowing, you're making it worse, and they see it as like a symptom of something wrong and a symptom of you kind of being wrong. Like you actually want to be sad and depressed. You're making yourself depressed, but they're going to fix it for you by putting the lights on and help. Oh, they think you're stuck in the dark because and if they just open the curtains and turn on the lights, that's actually them helping you like turn back on. But like, it's not depression behavior. It's nervous system management, right? Reducing visual stimulation. That is literally how we regulate. We're reducing the load on a system that is already maxed out. And it's the same thing with the batteries. We have all these different kinds of batteries. And if I'm in the dark on a hard day, I might actually be able to get some things done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, there's often a big difference between that nervous system management or regulation and depression because I've experienced both. And for me, the big difference, and I'm only speaking for myself here, I am not giving this as a diagnostic criteria, but for me, the difference is if I am in the dark for 20 minutes with that face mask and earplugs and dark out curtains, and I feel better afterwards, I know that that was part of just resetting my nervous system, right? If I feel like I can't leave that room for hours upon hours upon hours, okay, that might require definitely a different conversation. But like that reboot, the like charging a battery for your phone, like that's for me, it means I'm doing something good for me if I feel better afterwards. And sometimes it is that simple when it comes to advice, like is it making you feel better or is it making you feel worse?
Right. Yeah. When I was in college, I would come home from class sometimes and I would have to just lay down and just literally, it felt like letting all the noise come back out of my head. Like I was overstuffed with the noise of the day. And if I just lay down for 20 minutes, it just like equalized back out of my head. And then I could like function. And I don't have to do that now that I work from home and live in the woods and all of the things that are not being in college in town. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't get overstimulated like that from my day. But when I was, working and in class, like it was absolutely vital. Like I would just fall asleep in my homework if I didn't otherwise. But 20 minutes of just laying, it wasn't a nap. It was just literally this like static floor, just discharging. And then I could function again. And yeah, it's like that's not depression. That's just overwhelm, just sheer overwhelm. And I had enough space I could let it out again. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of these pieces of advice that we're talking about, they do have a lot to do with our capacity. They have a lot to do with, our nervous system, our sensory overwhelm, and just knowing ourselves and our own needs. So this leads into, well, a few more on our list here today, but one of them I've heard a lot of, if you really want to take care of the environment, make sure that you don't buy the packaged foods, don't buy the pre-made foods, right? Like buy everything fresh and organic, or don't go on Amazon. Like don't buy anything from Amazon.
In bulk. It all has to be in bulk ingredients. Better yet, grow it yourself. Grow everything yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Go off grid and grow everything yourself. And it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that from a logical perspective here. One, if I buy food that I have to do a lot of work to prepare, it often goes to the back of the fridge and dies a sad, lonely death. And I feel really guilty that I've wasted food, right? But if I buy something that is either easy to prepare or, pre-made or doesn't require too much out of me, I at least will get it eaten, right? And same with Amazon, like of course we know there's a lot of ethical considerations when it comes to Amazon, but there's a lot of people who are disabled, chronically ill, autistic, who struggle going into large stores that require things delivered for literal survival. And I think again that black and white, oh, if you're buying from Amazon, then you're not being a good person, you're not ethical. I think we have to be really careful about taking on the judgment that often is so prevalent online. Like, do this, you're a good person, do that, you're a bad person. And it's like, well, I'm just trying to be a person who, how do I word this, causes the least amount of harm while also keeping myself alive and caring for myself. And everyone has to make that decision for themselves.
Right? Plus, let's look at facts. In terms of the environment stuff, I know we all feel the pressure, but that's the capitalist lie. The three biggest offenders, the people that are the things that are ruining the planet are corporations, private jets, and I'm sorry, I'll say it, breeding. If you have children, maybe you shouldn't use AI, okay? Because you've already made quite a carbon footprint. But look, autistic people, unless you come from a wealthy family, we all need an assistant, especially with executive function. I know a lot of autistic people do have children and a lot of autistic people want children, and that's beautiful. But I would say as a people, you look at the numbers, the number of autistic people that do not want children is much larger than neurotypical people. So we're already usually not putting that amount of stress on the environment. And that's why, yeah, we have different capacities. So also like something like food prep Like that would be what they would tell you, Cheryl, right? Oh, just food prep. But our sensory sense, we are so much more in tune with our senses. I can't eat food on Friday from Sunday. That's disgusting. It's okay for a neurotypical palate. Like, I apologize to the friends and family listening, but it's not okay for me. By like 2 or 3 days, like I can notice that the food is changing and going bad, you know? So yeah, sometimes you just, or like right now I have roaches in my kitchen. They've come out 3 times to deal with it. It's absolutely revolting. If I see a roach, like I have food rotting right now. I can't, like I won't eat anything. So I've eaten nothing but Thanksgiving sandwiches, not from leftovers, from I ordered them. It's all I've eaten for 4 straight days. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have half a sandwich at each meal. And I guess I'm not done. I'm going to do it again today. I'm just getting started on these Thanksgiving sandwiches, to be honest. Until the ADHD says it's over. Then, you know.
Well, I mean, yes.
We do.
No, and I think with food, oh man, one of the biggest offenders with food in the environment is the waste that happens before it even gets to us as consumers. Like so much food gets wasted before we even have a chance to interact with it. So like, yeah, I definitely have my relationship with, well, I live in the country, so it's like an hour to get to town. So the way that we have to shop and cook is definitely shaped by that. And I was, kind of raised with that. And we have a lot of routines around prep and ingredients and bulk, but it has taken years of building routines that actually work for us and having a house that has a pantry and having both of us work from home and be able to figure out which tasks we can do and on what rhythms. And it's not like there was no just to any of this. Like every one of the routines that works for us is something that it took us years to figure out and build. And a lot of it is like I can prep ingredients way easier than I can make meals. So I do stuff like I make sure that there's just beans and rice as ingredients that my husband can pull out when I'm like, I need you to make food. There's beans and rice. Can you do the thing? I have a couple of soups that I know how to make, and like they're very, very consistent. And we know how to package our food so that way the leftovers do preserve correctly to our interests. We have the freezer space necessary to freeze things. If we're like, oh, this isn't going to last in the fridge, let's make sure to have the right containers to put it in the freezer. That's taken us so much experimentation. It's been so expensive in terms of time and money and food that didn't make it because the experiment went bad for one reason or another. Like, also, we have compost because we live out in the woods. So it's like, well, if we, I consistently accidentally call the compost recycling. Like, we'll just put the food in the recycling because it's like literally it's recycling food, right? You put it in the compost. Eventually we'll take that out and put it on whatever garden we're managing to try this year. Again, like the growing food, I was raised by hippies. So I'm like, just grow your own food. I am horrible at growing food. I am so bad at growing food. Like, I'm really good at harvesting if someone else can grow it, but I'm really bad.
I've dreamt of that garden in the past, but I do not have the capacity to do it. And honestly, Aradia, the word you used, I think we really have to stress right here. When you hear the word just in a piece of advice, that is often a huge red flag for autistic people, right? It's often the underlying connotation is there's like a minimization of one of our needs, right? Just go outside, just go for a walk, just try this recipe, and fill in the blank with whatever advice you want to do.
Right. I just make beans. It's a 24-hour process. I have to think a day ahead of time to remember to soak the beans. There is no just there. Yeah, I just made beans because now it's a routine I can do with my eyes closed. But that took me like 6 years to build.
Just try the new thing, okay? You've been doing this one thing, like, hyper focus for a while now. Why don't you just try this new thing? And why don't you just try this new food? Or why don't you just get out of your comfort zone? And I really do want to talk about the comfort zone thing because I think we all have something to say about this. And like the joke among a lot of neurodivergent people is like, leaving my house is often leaving my comfort zone. So I don't think you understand like how much of a leap it often is, right? Like, especially in spiritual communities that I've been involved in the past, there was this very common advice of just take a leap. Just take a leap of faith. And that was one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever been given in all of my life, because the amount of money that I have spent on trying these new things, and you buy the plane ticket and you go to the different country and you relocate and you try something new, or you try this course, and it's like this is going to be the thing that helps you and fixes you, with big quotations around that word, and changes your life forever. And it was like I always felt like it was that advice was tied in with like proving that I could trust the universe in some way, right? If I take that leap of faith, well, then I'm not living in fear, and I am really brave and courageous, and I just trust that something wonderful is going to happen. And you know what happened? There were some good experiences. Don't get me wrong. I made some great friends in all of my adventures, but I also went into massive debt that took me years to pay off. I also went into burnout. I also went into multiple careers that, my life has been a trial and error experiment. And so that when people say, these phrases, that makes it sound like it's for everybody. And somebody like me, who does often take things literally, well, that worked for them. It must work for me too. And it doesn't, I cannot stress how deep into a shame spiral I will go because of that. Like, it worked for everybody else, and for me, I must have done it wrong, right? It's like I didn't follow the recipe correctly. That's why my cake fell flat.
And I'm laughing with identification, Cheryl, because like the amount of lives I've built for people I thought I was supposed to be, like I identify with everything you just said so much. And about taking it literally, like when I used to do 12-step, they'd say, treat the program like a full-time job. I put 40 hours in a week. Nobody else did. Everybody else knew that you're actually supposed to work, and then they'd be like, just let everything will just fall into place if you just focus on sobriety. No, you actually have to work on the other things. I didn't know that. I was waiting for like Sky Daddy to hand me my fames and my fortunes and my relationships because that's what they said. Like, even just how could any advice that's neurotypical work for me? Because it's never actually what they said. There's some secret other advice. It's like, I don't know. I feel like you need like the Zodiac cipher breaker to understand what they actually meant as a neuro. And then they're like, the just thing? Just stop thinking about it. That's my favorite. Why don't you just stop? I'm sorry. I need to actually understand things. I'm not satisfied to go through life with surface level understanding of things. And I actually can't. I have a bottom down processing. They get the gist of something. They can move on. They can say it's not that deep. Oh no, it's what? How do you get to tell me how deep it is? Like, what do you know about what it is in my life? Or like, it's not what you think. You have no idea what I think. And what I think is I need to understand something fully. Until that final puzzle piece clicks, I don't get it. And once I get it, I will get it at a level that not only could they not even understand, but they don't even value. That's the part that blows my mind. They could understand something as deeply as I do once I'm done overthinking. They wouldn't want to. They'd be like, why you could have learned 7 things. Why are you so into that one thing?
Because we want depth. Because thinking is actually a step for us. It's not a preamble. It's an actual freaking step.
Oh my God. So looping these two, thoughts. The thoughts are backing up in my head. So this comfort zone thing and overthinking. I have thought about this really hard because I am very literal. And so there's like, growth happens out of your comfort zone. And you have to grow. And you just look at how you got to grow. You got to be out of your comfort zone. You got to always be out of your comfort zone. And in my journey of my autism acceptance and my social justice journey and just figuring out how to adult, just whatever, all of it, I have found and this is a take I have found no one to agree with me with on, I think there's lots of growth to happen inside the comfort zone. And I have straight up gotten into a verbal altercation with two men who are not neurotypical about how I'm wrong about this. Because we define words differently. And I apparently overthink what words mean beyond what these, tall, able-bodied, deep-voiced, authoritative, but definitely not neurotypical men think their masking behavior gets them. I think it's worth pointing out that lots of neurotypical advice comes from neurodivergent people because it worked for us and we powered through. So why can't you also power through? But I personally think that there's a difference between basic, like warm, fuzzy, soft blanket comfort and the comfort of knowing that you're taking care of yourself and doing something that fulfills your values and satisfies your need for self-actualization. To me, doing something that is the right kind of challenging is comforting. And I don't know if that's just because I have my own very unique definition of words, because I'm the only one who bothers to think about what words mean. But to me, especially in my autism journey and learning about my nervous system, I'm like, nervous system ease is where my greatest growth happens. I don't have great growth when I am in wet socks being screamed at by a poorly mixed sound system. I have my best growth when I have cozy socks on and I am struggling to learn how to make EQ work in my audio processing software. That's comfort to me, but I am still literally growing. And I'm glad you two were at least both nodding in response to all of this, because I've never met anyone who gets me when I am talking about this.
This is so powerful and so important, and I love this so much because we do define words differently, right? Even the phrase give 100%, right? I was defining that as what the common, explanation was. Oh, I need to give all I've got. Well, no, maybe giving all of your, maybe giving just what you have available to you for that particular project, which means there's still a lot left over for everything else. But no, this idea of using words, but like we understand it differently, and that growth happens out of our comfort zone. Oh my God, that was like so triggering for me. But I was thinking about this the other day, actually, this idea of growth, right? As the benchmark for a successful life, right? We need to be growing. And it's like unchecked growth is cancer.
Literally, oh my God.
And so I was thinking, like, what word would I use instead? And for me, it's thrive. What do I need to thrive as an autistic human, right? And part of that is comfort. And my definition of comfort is to exist without suffering. And why would I want to add more unnecessary suffering to my life, right? Oh, I'm going to like force myself to go and do this to show that I can step out of my comfort zone and I can grow in these really awful conditions. And then it's like you do think about the garden analogy, right? Whether you've successfully planted a garden in your life or you have failed, as I have, we get intuitively that each plant requires different elements and ingredients to thrive, right? Some require more shade than others. Some require like direct sunlight. Some require more water than another, right? If you have orchids, then you that one ice cube in once a week or whatever. And it's like we don't throw an orchid into, a really cold, wet environment. We know it will die. And we don't say when something like a plant or a flower or a tree, we don't see one that's struggling to grow and say, we really should put you outside of your comfort zone. No, we would actually check in and see what that thing needs and provide it. And I don't know why we can't do that more often for ourselves. And often we can't do that for ourselves is because we're listening to advice that says that we should be growing nonstop. And I don't want to grow. I want to thrive, which means loving myself enough to acknowledge my own wants, needs, etc., both individually and in my community.
Yeah. And I think it's worth acknowledging that like constantly letting your comfort zone shrink is also not good. You don't want it to always be perpetually shrinking or perpetually expanding, right? Like, perpetual growth is, and when you said perpetual growth is cancer, that reminded me of one of my other least favorite phrases, which is, we'll do more than you did yesterday. I'm like, that is literally an exponential growth that will not work. Okay. Like, I'm not a mathematician, but I am married to one. And I know that that's not how life works. It always really frustrating because, again, literally thinking like, okay, well, if I want to, I'm going to donate $5 to a cause today, which means I have to donate $10 tomorrow. And pretty soon I'm broke and the world is still on fire. So I have to somewhere know how to cut myself off. And I think a lot of times people confuse comfort with cutting off all potential for growth, and it's there needs to be a sine wave to it. Sometimes we grow, sometimes we shrink, sometimes we stagnate, sometimes we grow in directions we did not expect and then decide that we're going to actually pull back from that. And it's not going to be the same every single day, and it's not going to always escalate. Line cannot always go up.
And comfort doesn't mean rotting, right? Like, I know that sometimes on social media it becomes synonymous with, like,
Yes, exactly.
bed rot. But that's not, like, I can't speak for anybody else, but that's not how I'm using it. I'm using it truly as making sure that my needs are being met and that I feel safe enough to engage with others and different tasks. And that will make me, it will set the stage for me to be able to try different things and, I don't know, grow and evolve and try new things and just, build resiliency and all of those things that are important. Maybe not all day, every day in a straight line, like you said, but I think the big thing about this comfort zone idea for us as autistic people, at least the ones who are talking right now, is we're simply wanting to make sure we set the stage and we set the environment so that we can grow and thrive, right? And that environment has to be, I think of like little birds, right, who have just been born, and like we if a mother bird just shoves the baby out of the nest, like, get out of the comfort zone, right? That's silly, right? We would need it to like grow and get to the point where it was able to fly on its own. And as Matt says, instead of jumping out of your comfort zone, can you expand it, right? And we expand it by building self-trust. We expand it by making sure that our nervous system knows that we've got its back. And I think by saying that, we're just going to make sure we grow when we're out of our comfort zone, it's so harsh, and harshness doesn't work for me, and I've tried. As the saying goes, if beating yourself up worked, we'd be a hell of a lot farther along our path by now, because we've all tried that.
I think it's nice to end with that whole topic with that hope, though. It's kind of beautiful.
Yeah. Be safe enough to grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do we make safety when all the advice that's coming at us, well, not all the advice, when a lot of the advice coming at us doesn't work? That was one of the things in your opening spiel, Cheryl, was kind of identifying when it is and isn't going to work for us. And like, how do we know that? I mean, how do we trust ourselves to take in a piece of advice and evaluate it and know that we've, come to the right conclusion? How can we trust ourselves in that growth process? I think, again, it's comfort. If you feel comfortable with something, you should probably keep leaning in. And if it makes you uncomfortable, like, maybe double check your work before continuing on down that path. That's just my advice.
Yeah, and I think also keeping in mind some of the things that we've discovered over the years. Like, if you hear the word just, there could be some minimizing going on, and it might not be a one size fits all piece of advice. Two, like you say, checking in with yourself, being okay with trial and error, and realizing that that's literally how we learn. And I think that's really important. And looking at the words themselves and how we define them compared to how maybe the person giving the advice is defining them, and realizing that it might not be the same, right? And checking in, so I can end with an example, right? Like, be more well-rounded. Depending on how you take that piece of advice, if you're taking it really literally, you might take it as, oh my goodness, I need to do everything, like a little bit of everything, right? Like, I need to be working, and I need to be volunteering, and I need to be taking care of my family, and I need to be, trying new things and having hobbies. And like, the list becomes so large because you want to be well-rounded based on maybe your understanding of that definition. Whereas, if you decide what well-rounded means, right? Oh, well, well-rounded means for me that my nervous system is regulated, I feel safe, and I feel connected, right? What can I do to create that, right? So I think sometimes it is about maybe challenging, like what you said with some of those people that you were arguing with. Like, can you challenge socially accepted definitions of these words and make it work for us because we decide what it means?
AKA, we're encouraging overthinking.
It's just complete thinking.
There we go.
It's
there
not
we go.
overthinking.
There we go. There's the reframe.
Deep thinking, yes.
But you know what? Along with what you were saying, Cheryl, the safety and the trust, and then the energy that we have, I've stopped explaining to people why their advice doesn't work for me. It's just going to be more invalidating, and it's so exhausting. Like, maybe that's one piece of neurotypical advice that does work, is like, somebody can be like, oh, you should do this, and a neurotypical just like smile and nod and go do whatever they want anyway. And like, I realized very recently, like, that's a form of giving my power away. What does it matter? Who is this person in my life? Are they like, am I 5? Are they my mom? If not, we're good. It doesn't matter what they say. I'm allowed to smile and nod. It doesn't mean I'm being inauthentic. They don't just, and it doesn't matter to them. They don't care. They don't care why their advice doesn't work for me, you know? But it's so invalidating to try to be like, no, but this is how because that's me trying to justify, which is like what we spent our whole pre-diagnosed life doing, justify existing as us. And then that lowers my self-trust, you know, like talking to myself, even out loud. Like I pretend like I talked to my cat until she bit me the other day, but I pretend like I'm talking to an interested party. That actually works way better.
Yeah. And I mean, what might work for some of our listeners is completely, I don't want to say ignoring all advice, but really like getting in the habit of checking in with ourselves, like becoming our own expert, right? I don't need somebody else to tell me that, like, their definition of what work-life balance looks like. I don't need somebody else to tell me that I should just try harder. I don't need somebody else to tell me that, I'm a bad person if I buy a pre-made meal. Like all of those things in the grand scheme, I don't need anybody giving me that life advice because they're not living in my body. And so the more we trust ourselves and become our own experts and say, you know what, like I've really done the digging here with what I need, with, what my life situation is, my environment, all of those, all that data, and I'm going to decide what works for me. Like that, I mean, that's the dream, right? That's like, wow, that's me self-actualizing by trusting myself.
Yeah, and all humans live with what Tara Brach, who's a great Buddhist teacher, calls the trance of unworthiness. And we all have the fear of falling short, especially in a late capitalist, really individualistic society. But when you're living in a world that is specifically built for a different kind of brain, those things go up exponentially. So yeah, to lead that back around what Cheryl said, like taking this advice in, explaining why to people, trying to get approval from people, because they will, and that it's so, it can be so seductive if you follow a bad piece of advice. Like I used to, and then it makes this random person be like, good job, you did what I said. What I used to do, which was, I used to take their advice and then blow up my life so I could show them how it didn't work for me. Like, oh, look, I fell down and hurt myself again doing what you wanted. Will you now stop telling me what to do? Instead of realizing that, like, I was an adult and I didn't need to prove anything to anybody, least of all by hurting myself. But it did get them to go away.
Yeah, it's so important to realize we do not have to prove our experience or our worthiness or our effectiveness at taking care of ourselves to people that can't even give advice that they would take themselves, right? It's just no.
Honestly, this is the best thing we can do for anyone listening is if you can't learn from us, like learn from our mistakes. Because this one of my high school English teachers, one of my favorite teachers of all time, she had a sign in the classroom. She said, if you can't be a good example, settle for being like, hold on. oh crap, I'm gonna, oh no, we're gonna have to take this part out because it's such a good quote and I'm gonna bungle it. It's something about if you can't be a good example, like settle for being a horrible warning or something like that. And it was just like,
I love it. I
That's-
love it.
that's us.
Yes, yes. If our advice doesn't work for you, trust that. Trust that our mistakes don't need to be replicated by you. If it feels like a mistake, don't do it.
Unless you have PDA, in which case you might want to do it just because you want some autonomy, but make up your own rules.
Just think about it completely. That's all we're asking. All right. There we have it. A friendly and autistic discussion around some of the pitfalls around popular advice given out by neurotypicals, why so much of this advice doesn't work for autistic adults, and what might or might not work instead. In the future, we're definitely going to revisit this topic with respect to relationships specifically, so stay tuned for that on this feed. As a reminder, we are all peer support coaches within the Autistic Peer Support Coaching Collective, offering a variety of free and paid intentionally autistic spaces. You can learn more and follow us at our website, autisticcoaches.com. You can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends, peers, and anyone who lives with, works with, or loves an autistic person. Thank you for listening to us talking about autistic stuff for autistic people. New episodes come out on alternating Mondays. Keep the conversation going on our Blue Sky feed or send us your constructive comments and feedback via email at autisticstuffpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, don't be surprised if popular advice seems to backfire if you're autistic. You're not broken. The advice simply wasn't created with your unique wiring in mind. Autistic Stuff for Autistic People is a production of Fox and Draven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Draven Media, visit our website, foxanddravenmedia.com.